Welcome to the complete beginner's guide to Formula 1, which I've compressed down into different videos. This video is all about the Formula 1 lingo, and the terms are going to come thick and fast. I'm going to run through all the Formula 1 terms you may or may not have heard, with an explanation for each one, so buckle up. DRS, the drag reduction system, a slot opening on the rear wing that opens up to increase the top line speed of a car in a straight line. Green track. This is when a track has barely been ran on, or it may be dirty or dusty and lacks grip. Usually spoken about at the start of a race weekend or maybe after it's rained. Ultimately, a green track has less grip. Apex, the middle point of the inside line around a corner at which drivers aim their cars. Dirty air. This is when a driver is close behind another car and the car in front is disturbing the air, causing the car behind to be less efficient. It's impossible to see to the naked eye, but a driver can notice it easily. Think of it like two boats following each other, one is in the other's wake. Clean air. This is the opposite, and it's when a driver has no other cars in front of them, meaning they have perfect conditions. Box. This term is used when an engineer is telling a driver to pit, and it may seem like an odd phrase to use, but it comes from the German word Boxenstopp, meaning pit stop. Marbles. These are little pieces of rubber that have come off tyres during a race weekend, and they tend to group up off the racing line. Flat spot. This is when a driver locks up a tyre, causing one small area of it to flatten, creating a flat spot. Think of it like one side of a 50p piece. It can cause a lot of vibrations for the driver. Blistering. This is when a tyre overheats, and the excess heat can cause the rubber to soften, and in turn large parts of rubber can break away from the tyre. Blistering usually happens when the tyres are under too much stress. Graining. This is when excess heat on the surface of the tyre or sliding can cause pieces of the rubber to tear away from the surface, and then they refuse with the tyre, creating an uneven surface. Graining can occur due to overdriving a tyre that's too soft, or overworking the tyre before it's up to temperature. Tyre Deg. Tyre degradation just refers to how much wear a tyre has or is expected to have. High Tyre Deg means that the tyre is going to have a lot of wear and its life isn't going to be very high. This could be due to a really abrasive track, or maybe just high temperatures. Falling off the cliff. This term is usually used when a tyre quickly loses any more performance and a driver's pace drops off significantly, often costing them a lot of time. Backmarker. This is a car that's been lapped or is just about to be lapped. Undercut. This is when a driver pits a lap or so before a car that they're following, and once they're released from the pits, they use that fresh rubber to gain time and eventually jump the car that was ahead of them. This works because they can use that fresh rubber to gain time while the other car's going around on old tyres. Overcut. This is the exact opposite of the undercut. This is when a driver ahead pits, but the car behind stays out and puts in fast laps. This usually only works in conditions when new tyres take a lot of time to get up to speed and temperature. Plank. This is a hard composite strip, also known as a skid block, that's fitted to the length of the underside of the car. It's used to make sure that no car is running too close to the track surface, something that is apparent if the plank is excessively worn. Delta time. This is the difference between 2 laps or 2 cars. For instance, my qualifying lap was half a second down on my delta. Understeer. This is when you turn into a corner but the front end of the car wants to drift to the outside and slide rather than grip and turn in. Oversteer. Oversteer, on the other hand, means that the rear of the car often wants to come around on you to a certain extent when you turn into the corner, but you have a good front end. Different drivers prefer different types of cars. Brake bias. This is a setting that drivers can change to alter how the car feels under braking. It alters the percentage of braking done by the front and rear axles. Drivers can change the brake bias constantly around a lap, depending on the corners that they're coming up to. The brake bias can completely change the feel of the car under braking and the car's stability. It'll be slightly different for every driver, but if a driver's brake bias was 55%, then that would mean 55% of the braking is being applied via the front of the car. Overtake Button. This is a little button on the steering wheel that when pressed gives the driver a slight battery boost that can help them either defend or attack. It's not limitless though, so they need to use it sparingly. Slipstream. This is when you are close up behind another car gaining a speed advantage. This happens because the car in front is using their power to push through the air, creating almost a void behind them, and the car behind gains speed due to having less air resistance. ERS. This is the energy recovery system, and it's a complicated beast that F1 cars have when they harvest energy under braking that can then be used on other parts of the circuit to give them extra engine performance. Parc Ferme. This is a restricted area where no team members are allowed to go. It's a place where all of the cars are driven after qualifying and the race, and it's supervised by race stewards. Parc Ferme conditions can also apply to an extent as soon as a car goes out for qualifying. After this point, only minor changes can be made to the car. Tyre Warmers. This is an electric blanket that is wrapped around the Formula 1 tyres in the garage to try and keep them warm. Formula 1 is trying to get rid of them though, and if they did, it would mean that when a driver went out on track for the first time, their tyres would be extremely cold and offer up very little initial grip. Tear-offs. These are little strips on the front of a driver's helmet that they can quite literally tear off during the race. A helmet gets really dirty with all sorts of things, but thankfully they have multiple strips that they can tear off to clear up their vision. The 107% rule. This is a rule that applies when a driver doesn't set a qualifying lap because they either crashed or had a technical issue. Providing a driver has been at a pace that's within 107% of the pace setter over the weekend, they'll be allowed to race on Sunday. Usually this boils down to a steward's decision though, and thankfully they use a good chunk of common sense. And there we have it, those are my quick-fire Formula 1 terms. I have plenty of other Formula 1 guides covering all areas of Formula 1, so if you enjoyed this video, why not go check one of those out, and I'll see you next time.